be using a cell phone. If anyone else is using a cell phone, that cell phone will be taken from you. So unless you have filed an order with the court, you have no permission to use your cell phones. And please make sure your cell phones are off. And gentlemen, anything else for the record?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Nothing from the defense, Your Honor.
Let's bring our jury in.
All rise for the jury.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Good morning. Thank you for coming back. Gentlemen, we are ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor, on behalf of the defense.
Your next witness?
Chief Smith is still on the stand, Your Honor.
And again, sir, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
And I'm sorry, what was your first name?
First name is Howard, H-O-W-A-R-D. Okay.
Very quickly, Chief, the murder happened on July 24th. Just so that I can set the rest of the testimony this morning, would you give us the timeline for the investigation being headquartered initially at the police department, then at the administration building, and then at the school? What were those dates again?
The command post was initially set up at the Armada Police Department. We utilized the department, the commission room, and the village offices. Probably going into that first day, the 25th, as we went through the night into the day of the 25th. Initially, with the task force and other people coming, we probably had somewhere between 50 and 75 officers from various jurisdictions that were on the scene. One of the incident commanders came to me and said, we need a bigger space. We moved approximately half a block away to the Armada administration, school administration building. We took up a couple of their classrooms and one of their large meeting room areas.
You indicated that on that next day, that Friday the 25th, and on Saturday the 26th, was when there were the, I guess, the largest contingent of law enforcement investigators on this case?
That would be correct.
Let's go back to the scene itself. Now, we know from the testimony of Officer Newmeyer that approximately 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, he was the last one to leave, took that final photograph, and then the work continued. It would appear at the police department. The next day, was a search organized for evidence on that Friday the 25th?
Yes, there was.
Would you explain to the jury how that went about and what, I guess, agencies were involved in that search?
What we had determined from talking to April's mother was that when April went on these walks with Penny, she would take a backpack. We knew that we were missing her cell phone. We had the text from her cell phone that was important to us to determine where it might be. So we started a ground search. We requested the assistance of K-9 Buster. We had Macomb County Sheriff's reserves on ATVs. We had them on foot. We utilized a drone. We had other agents that were part of these task force that were part of this ground search, and we were trying to determine in particular where the backpack was, and the leash, and the cell phone.
Let's talk a little bit about the general area. We have seen the photographs from the aerial on Google Earth, and we've seen the photographs of the aerials from the trail. We've seen the ATV video that ran the length of the trail. You had talked a little bit during your initial testimony about coming in through Liberty and the marsh area in Liberty, that subdivision. Why was it important that that area be searched?
The proximity to the crime scene, in that it backed up to the crime scene. There was actually a worry that evidence might have been in there. We were hoping, because of the bulrushes and things like that, particularly the backpack, if that was thrown in there, that if we could get over top of it, maybe we could see it.
Was a drone provided during the search to assist law enforcement?
It was.
Were a number, I guess, of videos taken from the drone?
There were.
I'm going to hand you People's Exhibit number 67, and do you recognize what this disc is?
That is the disc from the drone, the video of the drone.
At this time, Your Honor, I have shown the disc, whatever, to Mr. Sheik. Mr. Sheik hadn't provided, as part of the original discovery, all of the drone videos. At this time, we would move for the introduction of one of the drone videos as part of our case.
No objection, Your Honor.
It is admitted.
Okay, if you would just simply turn around and watch the screen. If we could stop it right there for just a second. All right, would you sort of give, I don't know whether just where we're at here.
Yeah, well, this is Liberty, and this is the cul-de-sac at the end of Liberty. Actually, this is a really good look at the Liberty Trail as we talk about it. It's a two-track, or a single-track actually, that bikers, walkers, joggers use to get to the Macomb Orchard Trail. It starts out at the end of Liberty, comes around, comes back around, and as we've seen before, it ultimately pops out onto the Macomb Orchard Trail. This is a wet, marshy area that is really insurmountable to try to get in there and search it properly without the use of the drone.
When you indicated on
Excuse me,
Friday.
stop. Do you want, whenever you want me to shut the lights, let me know. I don't know when you want that.
Okay, if we would just do the main lights. Thank you, Your Honor.
Turn that just a little.
If I break the TV.
Don't do that.
It's my equipment if I break it. No one will know.
Thank you.
Mr. Sheik, if you need to slide into my seat, please feel free.
Thank you.
Now, you had indicated previously, I guess on Friday, that you had actually parked in that and then walked down that path that you just showed us?
Right. When Detective Sharp and I came in on Thursday night, the 24th, we parked our patrol unit there and we walked in.
Thank you. Go ahead, Craig. At some point as this is going around, I would ask you to point out where on the opposite side of the marsh the crime scene itself was. So more or less, this is what you're talking about, using the drone to search individual.
What the drone is
Pockets.
basically doing now is going from south to north, and then it will come back. It is virtually doing a grid search of the swampy area, so that we are getting a look at what is underneath the drone, and it progresses so that we're certainly, hopefully, leaving no stone unturned. This is that entrance to the Liberty Trail from Liberty that I spoke about earlier.
Okay, if you just remain standing for just a second. Pop your lights back on. Thank you, sir. I'm going to show you now People's proposed exhibit number 68. I'm going to show you a photograph and ask if you recognize what is in that photograph.
This is the Macomb Orchard Trail.
No, did you look at it yourself first?
Okay.
We're going to put it up on the screen.
This is the Macomb Orchard Trail. It is, as they call it in Armada, the new subdivision, and we're looking at the Liberty Trail.
That's an aerial?
It's an area,
It was
yes.
taken by that drone?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, Your Honor, I have shown it to Mr. Sheik. We will be moving for the introduction of People's Exhibit number 68.
No objection, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
If we could publish, Craig, come on down. All right. So we didn't have to show all of the drone videos. We just took this still now to represent the rest of what you were talking about. Would you show first off where the crime scene is?
The crime scene would be right about here.
Okay, now, in looking at this area back here, I see trees, and then I see shorter grass. Would you describe the difference of surfaces for the jury in that photograph?
Well, this is heavy treed foliage. This is more bushes and overgrowth. This area in here is the swamp area right around Liberty Trail.
Now, again, would you show through the trees of the path that the Macomb Orchard Trail follows, and would you then show the path that the electric lines follow?
The Macomb Orchard Trail is going to be this path here, which would be to the north, and then farther south is a path of electrical lines.
And so if I'm heading east toward Olmo, those lines are whatever this distance is here off the path to the south.
Right,
South.
to your right. If you're headed eastbound, it'd be to your right. If you're headed westbound, it's to your left.
Okay. Now, while you're up, let's show you a couple of other videos. When you were present on that Friday, did you go to the area where April's body was found?
I did.
And that was after the body had been removed, and that was after the body had been checked by the evidence technicians from the various departments?
That is correct.
I'm going to show you exhibit number 69. And 69, the exhibit, do you recall being shown and presented as part of where you were a video of the area where the body was?
I did.
And that's what's represented here in exhibit number, proposed exhibit number 69?
Yes, sir.
At this time, Your Honor, we would move, I have shown it to Mrs. Sheik. Mrs. Sheik did receive it as part of discovery. People's proposed exhibit number 69, which is a video made in the area where April's body was found.
No objection, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
All right, if we could go ahead and play 69. That orange represents what?
That orange represents where the body was located.
Okay. And if you could stop it right there, Craig. We have talked a little bit and had several witnesses, including yourself on Friday, talk about that elevation change. Would you point it out on the video and describe it for the jury, for the record?
Right across the top here is where your paved portion of the trail is. This portion from here to here is what we spoke of as the shoulder. This is the drop-off going down. You can kind of see where somebody kind of slid here. And then on this edge here, it's hard to see the depth perception, but this edge here is where the trail comes back up, going towards the body.
Okay, continue. And at this point, the camera's going to do a 360 to show the area. From your having been there, is this an accurate representation of how dense that area is inside where she was found?
It is. I think with the earlier picture where we saw where the body was laying, there is almost like a little alcove or opening in that cutout, but it is heavily treed and secluded once you get in there. Now again, we've done the 360. This is our opening back to the trail.
Craig, could you back it up just a second? Just 3 or 4 seconds so we could see back to the trail from there. No. There you go. Okay. Stop it right there. So what you were talking about earlier, there's just that one small area where there appeared to be a clearing?
It's almost like a doorway in nature that would be the entrance to that secluded, heavily foliaged area.
Now, we know that there were a number of investigators that went down there and a couple of police officers. Is this a natural area, or was that trampled as a result of a number of people performing services during the time of the investigation?
No, that's a very natural look at it. I think that in particular, the fire department did a great job of going in and coming right back out. They were not in there for any length of time. Officer Newmeyer was not, and then we had the techs in the MEs in. Short of that, until I went in the next day, we didn't have anybody in there.
Okay. Then leave the lights on. I'm going to hand you People's Proposed Exhibit number 70. That was another video that was taken that day at the area, at the scene where the body was. I believe at this time we will move to the introduction of People's Exhibit number 70. It was turned over to Mr. Sheik during part of the discovery process.
No objection, Your Honor, to its introduction.
It's admitted.
Now, we had an ATV that was driving that we showed you on Friday, and this one is a walking version. Stop it right there. Those two trees look familiar.
Yeah, these are kind of the if you will, the door stops for that entryway back into the foliage.
And when you were talking just a second ago about sort of that natural opening, that's kind of sort of what we see right there.
Exactly.
Continue it. Now, for the record, what's the camera doing?
The camera's moving down towards and going towards the ditch that enters in, and you can now see the drop off that would be on the north side, or the climb up to that little area on the north side, however you want to look at it.
Would you put the pointer on approximately where the body was as the camera's approaching?
Right in here.
And again, this is that natural park. This was not a result of being trampled by any number of people.
That is correct.
All right, thank you. You can have a seat. Some lights back on. Thank you. Because there was a lot of publicity immediately about this case, were tip lines set up to receive tips from the general public?
They were.
How would you describe for the jury they were set up, and what agencies were fielding tips?
There was probably 11:30 at night. We had already had contact from the media. The next morning we had people walking into the station. We needed to establish, if you will, a clearinghouse for tips coming in. We scheduled, as I remember it, we scheduled a press conference for 11 in the morning the following morning, and the media was quite helpful in us getting out information, looking for tips. The Michigan State Police set up a Michigan State Police hotline. As I said, we had people coming to the station at that point in time, and as we moved it to the admin building, most of the people in the community that would do walk-ups knew where it was, and they would come up. And then Crime Stars also had requested assistance as well. So we were getting tips in person. We were getting tips from the Michigan State Police tip line, and we were getting tips from Crime Stoppers.
We all know, we read these cases where there's a homicide. In law enforcement circles, who are usually the initial suspects, or at least persons of interest when a case begins?
Look at the family, the loved ones, those that are close to the victim.
Was that done in this case?
It was.
Was there, I guess, a timeline established for Jennifer Millsap, April's mother,
There was.
and her husband, David?
There, not only was there a determination of where David was, there was also follow-up to ensure that what David was telling us was in fact the correct situation.
You learned early on about a boyfriend named Austin and a friend of his named Alex. We heard testimony on Friday from yourself and Officer Newmeyer that they were present at the scene with Jennifer. Knowing that one of them was a boyfriend, what did you do to investigate, or any suspicions you had about him being a potential suspect?
Well, actually, Austin and Alex, Austin was the boyfriend, but Austin and Alex were making statements that they were together. So we actually took a look at both Austin and Alex and tried to determine whether or not their stories were factual and where they were at the time of the crime.
We've seen now some videos from a McDonald's through Trooper Swift, as well as photographs of them from another security video at a gas station, both in Richmond. How soon after the investigation started were those two videos secured?
Those were secured within days.
The timing on those, did those then eliminate Austin and Alex?
Those coupled with other investigative tools, yes. Those videos showed Austin and Alex in Richmond at the time of the murder, and they also showed us that they were in an automobile at the time of the murder.
Which is important because of what type of tips that began coming in?
We had a number of different tips coming in, but we had, particularly Mr. Reski, who knew April. So we knew from he and his children that he had seen April and he knew it was April, and he saw her talking to an individual at the approximate time just prior to what would have been the time of the murder on a blue and white motorcycle.
Let's back up just a little bit. The first press release during the first, I guess, news conference dealt with a different tip. Would you describe to the jury what that was and what the investigative process was to go through that one and eliminate it?
Early in the morning on the 25th, we had a 14-year-old girl that lived in the new subdivision, as they call it in Armada. She identified that she was walking and that a white or a light gray painter-style van was in her neighborhood. It was occupied by at least 2, possibly 3 white males, and that the driver appeared to be pointing at her. So we were concerned with that style of vehicle. We were concerned with the fact that it was a young girl, approximately the same age as April, and that this guy appeared to be pointing at her. So we took that as a tip, and we put that out to the press that we were looking for this white van.
Now, approximately what day and what time was that?
That would have been on the 25th, prior to 11 o'clock.
What time did the rescue tip come into the department?
That tip came in on Friday as well, but it would have been either just prior to the news conference or after the news conference, because we did not have that information to give out at the initial news conference.
Did the investigation about the van stop at that point?
It did not.
Did a second press release get released talking about that?
I'm sorry, sir.
Did a second press release get produced to then put information out there about a motorcycle?
Yes, we did put out the information about the motorcycle at the next press conference.
Did you stop looking at the white van?
We did not.
Just because we have a motorcycle and an identification of April on the trail with the motorcycle, does that preclude then you looking at anything else in this particular case?
No, it doesn't. We had approximately 1,000 tips. We looked at all of them.
And these tips came in over what period of time?
Months.
Month?
Well, no, months. They started coming in on the 25th, and if I'm not mistaken, Detective Sergeant MacArthur still gets an occasional tip.
Was every tip reduced, I guess, to writing?
Virtually every tip was reduced to writing, and when I say that, there did come a point in time where we had certain investigative teams working on one person. Those tips may have just been handed off to the investigative team and not reduced to writing. Everybody was supposed to, so I can't say with 100% certainty that every tip was reduced to writing, but it was supposed to be.
How many tips do I have in these two boxes alone that were reduced to writing?
1,000, around 1,000.
Was a form designed to handle the tips when they came in?
Yes, there was.
And that form initially required, I guess, what information first?
We wanted to get the information of who the caller was. We wanted to get, contact information. We wanted to get what the tip was in regards to: white van, motorcycle, composite, miscellaneous. And then we would put down what the tip was, and then we would take that and we would assign that tip to an investigative source, I'll say.
Would it be safe to say that every one of these tips was looked at?
It would be.
And when the form was filled out and the tip was either useful or not useful, there was a summary written on that form?
That is correct.
I guess what I'm getting to here is we have now a white van, we then have a motorcycle. We've heard the testimony from Trooper Peckman indicating that on the 25th, later that day, he had identified or discovered a blue and white motorcycle that ended up coming back to Mr. VanCallis. And then we had, we'll talk about that in just a second, a composite that was...
There is a composite that is generated in this case, yes, sir.
Is all of that going on simultaneously?
It is.
Now, we know about Mr. VanCallis on the 25th of July as a result of Trooper Peckman seeing the bike, running the plate, and then going to the VanCallis house.
That is correct.
Would it be safe to say that the vast majority of these tips weren't even received yet?
Oh, absolutely.
So regardless of the focus on Mr. VanCallis, did your team just simply then ignore the rest of the facts or the rest of the tips that came in?
Absolutely not. We wanted to, again, make sure that there was no stone unturned.
Well, now, were every one of these tips legitimate?
No, sir.
Did that stop you from at least securing whether or not there was something to it or not?
We absolutely would.
Did you hear from psychics?
We did.
Revenge tips?
Yes, sir.
People that saw the composite and tried to tell you that it looked like somebody?
I don't mean to be racist, sir, but we had somebody look at the composite and say that it was a black guy.
Would these tips then, when somebody came in and said it looked like person A, B, or C, would you then secure a photograph of that person?
We would.
Did some of them match?
Some of them were close enough that we used investigative resources to go out and interview that person. We would determine whether or not that they had a motorcycle, whether or not that motorcycle was operative, whether or not they did actually, fit the composite and the descriptions that we had of the suspect, and where they were on the night of the 24th around 6:30 at night.
So you didn't just simply take a tip and say, well, okay, here's the composite, here's a picture of Mr. VanCallis, here is the picture of this person, and just simply say, no, that's not close enough for me, I'm not going to do anything with it?
No, sir, we did not.
Did tips continue to roll in about a van?
They did.
Was there a point in time in which you were able to eliminate the van and that tip as a viable tip in this case?
Yes, there was.
And how describe that? So,
As we were getting these tips in, and we had investigative resources, but we only had so many hours in a day. So those tips would get put into different files. And one of the files was the white van. As we got into this, initially our focus had initially been on the white van. We moved to the blue and white motorcycle, and then I went back to the white vans. We had a tip that came in the second day from the owner of a white van. He told me that he was, I had him come in the station. He told me that he had been in the subdivision the night of the 24th, that he had two workers with him, that he was gearing up some of his construction business, and he was in the he was in the new subdivision, pointing out different homes that he had constructed in the subdivision. He did not recall the 14-year-old girl. We took pictures of the white van. We went to the original reporting party that reported that van. We showed her the picture of the van, and she positively identified that van as the van that she saw the night of the 24th.
did that stop tips from coming in on white vans?
They did not.
Did that stop you from exploring the tips that continued to come in on white vans?
If there was something that would have put that van in the Armada area and something suspicious about the van, we would look into it further. If that tip came in from, say, Melvindale with no license plate, no possibility of following it up, we would close that tip out in that we had discovered the white van that was actually there, both by the admission of the owner of the van and by the reporting party's indication.
Now, in looking at the number of tips that came in and the amount of time and effort it would take to your team to work through that tip, did you, I guess, when tips came in from cities not necessarily in Macomb County, would you then engage those other departments to assist?
Right off the top of my head, I know that we engaged the Detective Bureau in Canton, the Detective Bureau in Flat Rock to investigate motorcycles that matched the description. We also had the description of an indication on a composite that a young man that I believe used to live in St. Clair County. We spoke with his parents. His parents identified that he was in Florida. We determined where he was in Florida and sent an investigative team in Florida over to make sure that he was not in the Armada area on July 24th, 2014.
What was the date that Mr. VanCallis was arrested?
I believe he was arrested on August, was it August 3rd or August 8th? I'm not 100% certain.
Did you then stop investigating tips where there were facial similarities after he had been arrested?
We did not.
Did you stop investigating tips on motorcycles after he was arrested?
We did not.
On vans after he was arrested?
No, sir.
On any of these tips that came in, did you stop investigating them once he was arrested?
No, sir. What we wanted to do is, as I said, we wanted to make sure no stone was left unturned. We took a look at every tip that came in.
Now, I heard an opening statement that you have a vendetta, or Armada PD has a vendetta against Mr. VanCallis. How long have you been chief of Armada?
9.5 years.
Did you even know who James VanCallis was?
I did not.
Had you ever met him before?
I did not.
Do you have a personal vendetta against him?
I do not.
Is there any reason why you would have on your own or through your department or through your task force say to everybody, we're just going to look at him and do nothing but look at him?
Absolutely not.
In fact, was there a suggestion made after his arrest or after he became a suspect for a different agency to do that part of the investigation?
I've got two of my officers that are retired Macomb County Sheriff's Office. Those two officers...
Okay, just to answer my specific question, was there a suggestion that a different agency focus on that instead of Armada?
Yes, sir.
And who suggested that and what agency was it?
I suggested that, and I suggested in Detective Sergeant MacArthur also agreed and wanted it that way. We had the Michigan State Police investigative teams, and there were times that we also put a federal officer with that investigative team for investigative reasons, but that was headed up by the Michigan State Police.
So essentially then, while you're overseeing it, the Armada PD is still overseeing the bulk of the investigation, the part of the investigation dealing with Mr. VanCallis, some of which has already been presented here in court, was being handled by the state police.
That is correct.
Aside from the numerous tips that were investigated by your department and closed, did you also suggest and complete other types of mass searches in the area for any potential evidence?
We did. One of the things that we did early on, and actually the FBI handled the heavy lifting on this, was we did a blank canvas of the neighborhoods of the community.
When did that start?
That started on Saturday the 26th, I believe.
Now, we've seen some of the photographs of that area where the trailhead is by the greenery. How many residents in the village of Armada?
I believe there's about 600 residences and about 15 to 1,800 residents.
The percentage-wise of those houses that the canvas covered, what's the percentage of those 600 houses?
All of them, 100%.
And again, there was a form filled out by the investigators who knocked on each door?
There was.
And what was that information that was to be included in this?
We had the names, address, telephone numbers. We had the where they were on the night of the 24th. We had if they had seen anything peculiar, if they could, if they did see something, if they could elaborate on that and give us more information.
And in fact, something significant came out of that.
Yes, sir.
What piece of evidence came out of that search?
Well, one of the things that we were asking if anybody had any home surveillance. And we ended up finding a firefighter who lives on Jefferson that has 3 home surveillance cameras on his home.
And what was the information that was provided to you from the video initially that then piqued everybody's interest?
Well, actually what we had is he was very generous. He gave us all of his video, but at approximately 6:30, 6:40 on the evening of the 24th, we have video of a motorcycle going by the home. It comes down Holwig towards the home. It turns southbound on Jefferson, and then it turns eastbound on Monroe, and we have all of this off of the homeowner's home surveillance.
In fact, he was asked to look for something different at first, correct? Once you found out he had video surveillance?
Yes.
And what was that?
We asked him to take a look to see if he had anything of the white van.
And then he contacted you and indicated he didn't have a white van, but there was the motorcycle.
That is correct.
And then the FBI, through the task force, secured all of that, all the images.
They did, yes.
Did you stop there?
No, sir. We did the next morning, we did a mass search for the, for the backpack. We did what's called a rolling canvas.
Okay, I call it a roadblock. You call it a what?
I call it a rolling canvas.
And would you explain to the jury exactly what you did, when you did it, and really, more importantly, why?
What a rolling canvas is, in a sense, the police officers stop cars to interview the drivers. We did that exactly a week after the homicide. We did it on Thursday night. She was murdered on Thursday night, the 24th. We did this on the following Thursday night. We did it between the hours, I believe it was 4 or 5, till about 7 or 8. We would stop the car. We would ask them if the week before, if they had also been on the roadway at that point in time, and if they, in fact, saw anything that may help us further investigate the crime. We set these up. Armada is not a very big place. We set it up in the south end of North Avenue. We set it up on the north end of North Avenue. We set it up on the east end of Armada Ridge. And we set it up on the west end of Armada Ridge.
And all as a result of that, again, the officers that were involved in that, they were filling out forms as to who they spoke to and whether or not any information was secured?
That is correct. And any motorist that chose not to participate did not. We only had about maybe 4 to 6 that didn't participate.
Did you receive any information helpful to this investigation from the rolling?
We did. We've received a couple tips. The one that sticks out clearest in my mind is a lady saw a white male, a young white male, on a blue moped. She said he was having difficulty riding the moped. We were able to track that down. We found out the reason he was having trouble was because he had shock absorbers in his lap. We followed that up. We determined from his father and the people that he was with, he was changing shocks on a truck that night, and he was in his barn all that night, but we followed it up.
So, again, you didn't just simply, because it was a week later, not follow it up.
We absolutely followed it up.
We've talked about a rolling canvas of vehicles. We talked about you did all of the residences. We talked about the tips that came in. Did the task force go through the town and talk to the businesses?
We did, in particular, and we had a group, if you will, kind of video gurus that were part of the task force. They actually went out, and one of the things that we were looking for in particular from the commercial businesses was not just whether or not they saw anything, but whether or not they had any video.
Would you describe some of the locations that you secured security video from that was part of this investigation?
Well, we selected video from all over the place. Anybody that had anything, we tried to get it. We got it from Delecky Welding. We got it from Larry's Automotive. We got it from Fifth Third Bank. We got it from the Marathon gas station. I thought there was one more, but it evades me now.
And then this specific team would sit down and look at those during the times that were isolated to see if there was any relevant information in them?
Well, actually, they spent grueling hours going over it, kind of in the back of this meeting room we had. There was, in particular, at the beginning, there was 3 of them, and they just went over it and over it and over it, trying to find things.
We've got the residents, the businesses, the tips, the vehicles. Did you also search a landfill?
I'm going to say we on that, but actually the Federal Bureau of Investigation, their evidence recovery team spent 2 days out of the landfill. We believe that part and parcel of the 16 bags of garbage that were taken from the VanCallis residence were in this landfill, and we were looking for the items that we had yet to find in the landfill. And the FBI evidence recovery team spent 2 days out there looking.
Were eyewitnesses developed as a result of the investigation?
There were.
How did their information come into the task force?
Voluntarily. They came in, they identified, in particular, 3 of them had been on the trail the day of the event. One was an eyewitness, Mr. Resky's already testified. One was an eyewitness to April. 2 were eyewitnesses that said that they saw somebody on a blue and white motorcycle, and then there were 2 other people that saw something in the little clearing by the Liberty Trail that they thought were suspicious. They came forward as well.
You're an officer of many years. We've spent time questioning the jury during voir dire about eyewitness testimony and their opinion and credibility. In your experience as an officer, the eyewitness testimony that you're receiving here, what do you do to verify or do whatever you can to be certain that it has some credibility?
Through my experience, my training, through different detective bureau courses that I took when I was in the detective bureau, and that one of the things that you look at with eyewitness testimony is the credibility, the daylight, the time, the frequency. There is some, if there's a weapon involved, there's some focus on the weapon, not necessarily on what they're seeing. And the other thing is what you want to do is you want to take it for what this eyewitness is telling you. If they have particular focus on a certain thing, you accept that and go with that. You then look at corroboration. Are there other people that saw the same thing? Can you corroborate what the eyewitness is telling you? And in the most part, the eyewitness is correct the majority of the time.
But there are times where there are issues. And
Yep, absolutely.
It goes both ways.
It does.
Do you sit, I guess, as the judge of it, or do you just simply gather all that information and continue to move the investigation forward?
My job is to gather the information, put it all together, and provide it.
There came a time where there was another search sometime after the July 24th and 25th and 26th searches. Deputy Bozak has already testified to a backpack being found in that second search. Would you now fill the jury in on how the reason for that search came about, how it went off?
There was a group of us doing some interviewing, and we were at the Macomb County Sheriff's Office. FBI agent Zent came in with a technical assistant or part of the technical team for the FBI. And he showed us the animation that you've all seen. And
That's the animation that we saw here.
that is correct. and really that's kind of a first impression. None of us had ever seen that before. But it was very specific. So again, we hadn't found this black backpack. So we went back out, we put together a group of searchers, mainly made up of the Macomb County Sheriff's Reserves, and we formed a line. We did not tell them where to go. We did not show them the animation at first. And we had them move forward. And they started from kind of the end where I showed you where the end of that elevator is. They started in a line, they moved across. And within minutes, they found that backpack. Now, as you saw in the animation too, we were going over trees and going over roofs. But there's also a jog, and there was a swimming pool there. We drained that. There was nothing there. But the search ultimately uncovered what we were looking for, and that was the backpack.
And it was just more than on the trail, it was along that whole path then that the jury had seen?
That is correct.
And aside from just draining pools, did you look into other pools also?
We did. We looked into other pools, we looked in backyards,
Behind sheds, everything?
Absolutely.
And you didn't stop just when the backpack was found, it continued?
We did, we continued.
There come a point in time where you had, the investigation discovered the Jordan Nike shoes?
Yes, there was.
Okay. Did you order a specific pair of shoes as part of the investigation?
I did.
What did you tell the jury what it was that you did?
We were indicated, or we were told, that Mr. VanCallis enjoyed wearing and wore on regular occasion this type of shoe. Initially, after the crime, the imprints on the victim's neck were so significant and vivid that we felt that if we could find those shoes, that we could match it up. We couldn't find the shoes, but we found the style of shoe that we believed it was. Now that style of shoe that he enjoyed wearing were white with black trim. I couldn't find a pair with white and black trim, for the purposes of the analysis, but I found a pair of that brand in Mr. VanCallis' size, and I ordered those and I brought those in.
As part of the process of arrest, you're talking about identifications here, as part of the process of arrest, would you describe very quickly for the jury what a person goes through when they're arrested? What process does the police department or law enforcement agency follow when they're booking somebody after they've been arrested?
Generally, it's kind of like TV, except it's longer. You make an arrest on somebody, you take them into custody, you take them into a booking area, whether it be at your station or at the county jail. You fingerprint them, you take a picture of them, a mug shot if you will, and then you enter all of this into a database that starts what they call a criminal history build.
This time I'm going to hand you, I've shown it to Mr. Sheik, People's Proposed Exhibit number 71, and ask if you can identify what's in that photograph.
That is a mugshot.
Okay. Is that the booking photo of Mr. VanCallis the day he was arrested?
It is.
At this time, Your Honor, we would move for the introduction of People's Proposed Exhibit number 71.
No objection, Your Honor.
Admitted?
Publish. Doesn't look like Mr. VanCallis. If you would step down real quickly just to confirm that that's the photograph.
It is.
All right, and that mugshot would have been taken within a week or so of the July 24th?
I believe...
The date of
Oh,
arrest?
It is within a week.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Now, if you could take that down. You've also become aware of some of the potential eyewitness testimony, and you, as part of the investigation, and sitting here in court, you've seen the black helmet, heard about the black helmet, the person wearing the black helmet, that sort of information. I'm going to hand you People's Proposed Exhibit Number 72 and ask if you can recognize what's in this photograph.
It is a likeness taken off of Facebook of Mr. VanCallis wearing a motorcycle helmet.
And that's what you've seen on that Facebook page?
It is.
Okay. At this time, Your Honor, we would move for the introduction of People's Exhibit Number 72.
No objection, Your Honor.
Submitted?
If you would step down real quick, and is that the photograph, is that a picture that I had just handed you?
That is the likeness of Mr. VanCallis from Facebook.
There you go. At this time, Chief, I have no further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
You wish me to start now or after lunch?
You got a good 15 minutes, you can keep going.
Good afternoon, Chief.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sheik.
Forgive my voice, it's a little borderline right now. You indicated that at least about 1,000 tips came into the investigative process during this case. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And do you remember how many of them tied in with Mr. James VanCallis, the defendant here?
I don't remember exactly how many. We did actually two things with that. Initially, when they were coming in, we would actually make tip sheets. But because we had one tip sheet already on Mr. VanCallis, a lot of times what we would do is take the notes, put that tip sheet number back on it, and then hand it to the investigative team that was working on him.
So just so that I'm clear, if Mr. Cataldo were to allow you access to those two boxes that contain the 1,000 tips, is there any tips in there that you know of that pertain to Mr. James VanCallis?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, I think it's important that, do you know how to find them numerically? Are they alphabetical or
I have
numerical?
no idea. It actually, what we did is we had analysts that were taking these and categorizing them. To go through it, the paper would be, I mean, you're looking for half a dozen and 1,000. What we would do is ask the analyst to find a particular tip on the computer, and then they would tell us, print it out and tell us what was them.
All right, let me ask you this. This is an important case, right?
Absolutely.
What are the tips that were tied to Mr. VanCallis from your memory? Specifically tied to Mr. VanCallis, if you recall.
Sure. There was probably a couple, three, with regards to the composite. I know there was one from a neighbor that called with regards to the motorcycle, and that they used to see him regularly on it, but that they hadn't seen him on it in a while, probably because we had it. And then we received a couple tips that weren't of specific nature, but were of a general nature with regards to Mr. VanCallis.
All right, let's start off with what you said about probably a couple of three. What do you remember about those three?
Just that they saw the composite and they believed that Mr. VanCallis looked like the composite.
Okay, just so that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury understand the chronology of this case. In the beginning, composite was made, correct?
Correct.
And people came forth with certain descriptions, correct?
Correct.
And then there was video images of Mr. VanCallis that were broadcast on news and on TV and on the internet and all over the place, correct?
That is correct.
And then after that, you got some more tips saying, people saying this looks like him. Is that correct?
I believe we had one prior to, but
Who was that person?
I'm afraid I don't know. I'm afraid I don't know. I have a belief of who it was, but I can't say for certain. But I would agree with you
Okay.
that the majority came after the publication.
Okay, now, let me ask you this. When you say you don't know who, do you mean you don't know the source of that tip, or you don't know if it pertained to Mr. VanCallis or not?
No, it pertained to Mr. VanCallis, but I don't want to say for certain that it is who I believe it is, because I can't say for certain that is in fact the truth.
Sir, I'm a little lost. You can't say what for certain. I mean, you're saying it was Mr. VanCallis, but you're saying you can't say that for certain.
No.
Okay.
I'm certain it was about Mr. VanCallis, but the originator of the call, in my mind, I believe I know who it was, but if I were to say her name in open court, I don't know that I can say that her name is truthful, that in fact is who it was.
Okay, I got you. What was the tip?
Just that he looked like the composite.
He looked like the composite, correct? Do you have that composite, Spinelli composite, I think it's called? You know, I think you gave me standing permission.
That
Would
is,
you take a look at that? Is that the composite?
it is.
Now, this is a composite that was made by whom? Who drew this, or?
The MSP composite artist, her name is on the drawing.
Okay, and if I told you that it's dated 7/26/2014, would you have any dispute about that?
I would not.
Okay. And sir, looking at this composite, could you describe the hair?
Pardon me?
The hair?